Okay, let's get started here. What we're going to do tonight is actually work with a relatively new feature. We're going to have a look at how we can create prefix lists in CloudFormation. Actually did a really short demo on this just a couple weeks ago when this was first announced at the end of, I guess it's more than a couple weeks ago now, right? It's already almost a month, wow. But we did a quick demo on this where we created some prefix lists with just through the console, because at the time we couldn't find a reference in CloudFormation on how to do this programmatically. So I was digging through some of the AWS news alerts just the other day and noticed that I was able to now do this through CloudFormation. So what we're going to do today is just a really simple demo, build a prefix list, and then associate that prefix list with a security group. I had a look as we were getting ready, and I still can't find a reference in route tables yet. You can add the prefixes manually, but you can't, as far as I could tell today, still can't do that programmatically. So for the time being, we're going to set up a simple prefix list, couple branch offices as a demo, and then we'll associate that prefix list with a security group. So that's kind of the goal for today. So let me just flip over here to the actual editor. All right, and I'm ready to go. So I made myself a simple little project here, and we'll just create a file, and I'm just going to call it prefix.yaml. Okay, and we'll put in. Actually, I hate typing this, so I've got it over here. I'm going to grab my little starter script, and we'll just dump that in, right? So we're just going to create a simple prefix list. And the very first thing, we're going to set up some parameters. We'll come back to those in a second, and then resources. So obviously, this is where we're going to spend the majority of our time today. And we're just going to set up a logical name here. We'll just call it prefix list 0. Actually, let's make it a little more branch office list. All right, we'll define its type. There we go. And we'll define its properties. So there's a number of things here that are required. Some of them, well, we're going to keep it really simple to get started. So we'll set up the required pieces, and then we'll just add some tags where we need. Okay. We're going to create an IPv4 list, and then we have to add the actual entries. I'm going to leave this blank for now. We'll come back to that in a second. The interesting part of a prefix list is you have to set a maximum number of entries, and once that is set, it's immutable. You can't change it. So I looked in the service limits, or quotas, I guess they're called now, and there were a couple things in there. I was just looking to see if there was an upper limit to the max entries, and I couldn't find it. So for our example today, we're just going to make a number up and say 25. Okay. And you also have to give it a name. And we're just going to use an intrinsic function here and jam in whatever we call this stack at the end, and we'll call it branch PL. Okay. So let's go back to the entries. There's two pieces of information we need for the entries. The first is the range. So let's say this is our first branch office, and then we can give it a description. I can't remember now if when I looked in the documentation if the description was required or not, but it makes a lot of sense to put it in, because if you're anything like me, in literally a week from now, I'd go back and look at this and have really no clue what the heck this was for. So I'm going to go and give this a name. We'll just say branch office number 1, and then you just define up to the maximum entries that you've created below. Oops, there we go. Description, branch office. Wow, I can't type. There we go. Branch office number 2. We'll add one more just so we've got a good example here. So we've got 3 branch offices set up in the prefix list. There we go. Okay. Now I mentioned that we'll add some tags, and this is just a standard tagging setup. So we tend to use a set of standard tags. So we're going to say who owns this, and I'll just put myself as the default owner. Right? How do you contact me if you have a question about something in the template? And then we usually use environment, right? Is it dev? Is it prod? So we're going to say in here string, and we're going to say the default is, let's say, development, and we'll use allowed values because this is how we would do it if we were actually building this for somebody. So production, let's say development, I don't know, let's say test. Okay, so we've got our 3 environments. I'm not quite sure why this is complaining, why it's showing me this. I think what's happening here is it's not finding. I've got the AWS toolkit. Maybe I need an update in PyCharm for this to work. So I think it's probably just not. Yeah, see, it doesn't know what this is. Okay, so that's why I'm getting that error. We'll see what happens when we try to do the deploy. And then down here, we'll go ahead and set up. All right, we'll do some references back to those parameters. Owner, email. And then, what did I say? Environment, right? Oh, what am I doing? Ref, yeah, there we go. Whew. Okay. So at this point, in theory, we have a resource that defines our prefix list. So I think what we'll do now is we'll just deploy this first, troubleshoot it. If I've got any typos in here or anything like that, we'll find out if it likes this line 21 or not. And then what we're going to do is extend this by adding it to we'll create a security group and then refer to this prefix list in that. Okay, so let me just change my view here. Go back to the browser. And we're going to go here and we're just going to create a stack. And we'll do the upload of a template. And I'll find my prefix. So this will be our first indication if we did anything wrong. Okay, so no giant red bar, so we're good there. If we get time here, I'm not really planning for this to be very long tonight, so maybe what we could do after we get this done is show you how we would do this if we were actually doing it for a customer. Normally we would dump all this into GitLab and use a series of, a simple CI script really, and run some CLI commands for CloudFormation. So maybe we'll do that at the end. But we're just going to call this prefix demo. And here are my parameters that I set. Here's my drop-down list of my allowed values. I'll leave it as development. Doesn't really matter. We'll click next. Again, we would do this programmatically, but I'm going to follow kind of the way we would do this for a customer. And we would always tag the stack itself. Right, trying to follow best practice, and we'll say the environment for this is development. Normally we would have a tagging policy or something like that in the AWS organization service, so we want to make sure that if we're going to tag the resources, we'll tag the stack as well. So we've got that. We're not going to change anything else down here in the advanced options, but you might want a stack policy and those kinds of things. We're going to say next. We get our preview screen. We're going to scroll to the bottom, and we'll create a stack. So let's see what this does. As we're waiting, I'll get another tab open and we'll jump over to the VPC service here in a second. There we go. All right, success. Pretty basic template, so I'm not surprised that we got lucky there and got that to deploy the first time. So if we go over to VPC, go down the left-hand side of the console here, you see Manage Prefix Lists. You'll see a couple in here already. Those are AWS managed, right? One for S3, one for Dynamo, and then here's our new prefix list. So if we highlight this, you can see the definitions, right? It's IPv4. It supports both v4 and v6, but if you can't mix and match, so it has to be one address family per prefix list. So if you did have, v6 and v4 in your environment, you'd have to create two. It's also version controlled, which is pretty cool. So you could switch back if you've made a mistake. Our max entries, who owns it, all that kind of great stuff. And there's the unique identifier for this prefix list. You can see the entries. So here are our 3 branch offices. Right now, it's not associated to anything. You can also share a prefix list through the Resource Access Manager. We won't poke around at that tonight, but you can do this so you can share these prefix lists across your entire organization. And there's the tags that we set up, right? Just kind of following best practice about tagging all the resources where it's possible. Okay, so let's jump back to the CloudFormation console, or sorry, the PyCharm, and what we're going to do now is add a simple security group and use a reference to this branch office list that we just created as a way to add an entry, or add, I guess, an ingress rule. So let's go back here. All right, let me just drag this console out of the way so I can see my editor. So we'll come up with a really creative name as well. We'll just call it Branch Security Group 0. And we'll just define this as a security group. And then define the properties. Okay. So I've got, actually one other thing. We're going to blow this away and we're going to actually deploy it from scratch, the whole thing, to see it work. But this is normally how I might build out a template. I build it in stages to make sure that everything works rather than having to troubleshoot a large file. So if I want to deploy this all together in one shot, I know that the branch office prefix list has to exist before the security group. So I'm going to set up a depends on attribute here just to make sure that when we deploy this a second time from scratch, that CloudFormation, instead of deploying the branch office prefix list and our security group potentially in parallel, that it knows to do the prefix list first, right? So I just refer here to the logical name of that. And now we can go ahead and define the attributes of this security group. So we'll just say, I don't know, okay. And then we have to go ahead and create our actual ingress rules. Here we go. Okay, so we'll give this a description and we'll say allow TCP 22 from branch offices. So again, nothing too fancy, right? And we'll say from port 22 to port 22, and the IP protocol is TCP. So this is the new reference that I noticed just a couple days ago in the security group ingress rules. We now have I'm going to look at how to spell this because it's not going to show up in my editor here. So prefix list ID, and now this is where we're going to refer back to the branch office. Okay. Our security group has to be associated to something. So we need a VPC ID. What we're going to do is we're going to add another parameter up here, and we're going to say VPC ID, and I'm going to cut and paste this type because again I'll mess this up. We're going to use a special parameter type, an AWS parameter type. I don't want to have to type out the ID of this VPC, right? Because I'm most likely going to mess it up when I try to do it. So instead, this will give us a list of all the VPCs in the region where we're going to deploy this, and it just gives us a drop-down list and we can select it. So that's easy. And then we're going to refer to that as well. Okay. And just like we did before, we are going to tag. So I'll just steal all these tags from up here, and we'll dump that down there. I'm sure this is user error, but PyCharm always does this weird indent. Okay. So at this point, we've defined our prefix list. And now we've defined a security group, associated a security group with our VPC. And in this security group, we're saying allow 22, basically SSH, right, inbound from the prefix list, which includes right now these 3 ranges, right? Our fake ranges for our subnets, or sorry, our branch offices. So let's save this. I'll flip back to my browser. Just drag this where I can see it easily. And we'll go back to CloudFormation. And we're going to do something a little different here just to demonstrate it. If we were deploying this for real, we would always generate a change set. And if you're not familiar, a change set is a way, basically almost like a dry run. What we're going to do is we're going to compare the currently deployed template against the changes that we've just made to the template, and CloudFormation will tell us what it's going to change. Is it going to add something? Is it going to modify something? And really what we're looking for here is potential situations where a resource has to be replaced that we don't want it to replace, right? You'll see here in a second. So we're going to create a change set, and we'll say replace the current template, and we'll just re-upload my prefix template and say next. Okay, no errors again. Here's the new parameter that we have to pass through. So here's my drop down, right? So I use that AWS parameter setup, and I'm gonna put it in our super important Minecraft VPC, and we'll click next. All of this remains the same. We're not going to worry about changing any of this. Our summary slide, and then you'll see down here change set. So what's going to happen is it's going to basically do that comparison for us. Shouldn't take very long. So you see pending here. We'll refresh a couple times. It's already done. So you can see what it's saying is it basically has an add action. We're going to create a new security group. And really what I'm looking for over here, this is the column that I'm most concerned about. I want to know, is this change going to cause a replacement to happen? And if I recall what it says true, false, or conditional, something like that. I'm really looking for false here. If it says conditional, we would dig into it a little bit more just to make sure we understand exactly what's going to happen. And if we're happy with this, we can actually execute the change set, and that'll drop us back to the event. And again, this probably shouldn't take very long. There's our security group, and we're done, right? So now if we go back over here, and we'll filter on our Minecraft VPC just to limit what we can see, and we go down to our security groups, we should have that new VPC created. And what did I call it now? Already I forget. Oh, right there, right at the very top. Missed it. Prefix demo branch SG. And you can see in our inbound rules, what we have now, instead of having to create the source like 10.10.00, 10.20.00, 10.30.00, you get the idea. Now we just refer to this prefix list, which includes all of those branch offices. Right. And now we could go ahead and associate that security group with an EC2 instance. Right. So the only thing that's running in here, or that should be running, is that Minecraft server. We'll go up, we'll say networking, change security group, and we will add this guy. Okay. And there we go. We're now allowing inbound SSH from that range or several ranges of IP addresses that we defined in the prefix list. So I think this is really a fantastic way to simplify things. Also make it easier. I was talking to somebody today, and they were having a problem where team members, because it's just everybody's in a rush to get things done, they were just creating, let's say, less than optimal security groups, a lot of any rules. And the thought was that potentially by using prefix lists, now they don't have to think about the ranges that they need. They can just simply say, oh, I want to allow access from the branch offices, or I want to allow access from customer X, right? And then you could just have those prefix lists predefined, and the users could either create templates like we did to access them quickly, or you could put them in your CloudFormation templates to do it programmatically. I prefer CloudFormation templates, but that's just because I've been writing CloudFormation templates for a very long time now. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell on how you could take a prefix list, define it in a CloudFormation template, and then associate it with in our example here, a security group. I was hoping that we could do a route table as well, but unfortunately, when I was looking through the documentation this afternoon, I didn't notice yet a reference in the route table documentation that allows you to point to a prefix list as a target, right? So I'm guessing at some point that will happen because you can do it here already, right? If we go back to the VPC console, all right, we can let's go here. And your target now, oops, how did I do this before? Maybe I'm getting confused. Maybe I'm in the wrong spot for this. I could have sworn that it was supported by route tables as well, but I could be wrong. So it might be something you want to look up. Okay. I mentioned at the beginning that we would normally deploy this through CLI commands. So let's have a look at that and see if we can get that working as well, rather than doing this through the management console. All right, so let me drag this browser window out of the way again. Yeah, I must be looking in the wrong spot because I've got the announcement for prefix lists still open here, and it does say that security groups and route tables are used to control access, customers, blah, blah, blah. You can group multiple CIDRs in a single object and use it as a reference group for both security groups and route tables. So I just mustn't have seen it there in that console view somehow. So you can do both. Okay. So what's the easiest way to do this? Let's just create another file, and we'll just call it deploy.sh for now. And what we would normally do is validate the templates before deploying them. So we could just use AWS CloudFormation validate template. Okay, and then I can't spell. Jeez. And refer to the file. In this case, it's just prefix.yaml. And I have a number of profiles set up in my AWS config file, my credentials. So I'm going to say use this profile. Okay. Assuming that that is going to work, we could then deploy it. Okay. So we're going to say deploy. And this I definitely have to look up because there's a number of options. Just bear with me a sec. Let me show you what I'm looking at. So we would normally use the deploy command. And here's the deploy command. And you can see it's got a number of options here on it. Okay. And I'll show you kind of what we normally do for this. Okay. So we're going to say template file. And again, point it to the local prefix YAML file that we've got here. Okay. And then we're going to we don't have to worry about overriding any parameters, but if we wanted to, we could say something like parameter overrides, and we'll say environment, just to demonstrate this, equals, let's say, we made it development, I think, the first time, so let's go production now. Okay. And then we want to do no execute change set. So essentially what this allows us to do is don't actually execute the deploy, just create the change set. This is also a great way to practice some separation of duty. You could have one person or a group of people that are responsible for creating templates and deploying those templates, and then maybe the project owner reviews those proposed changes through the change set process before the changes are actually deployed. So this is going to generate a change set. There's the proper spelling. The other thing that we want to add here is no fail on empty change set. Now we don't really need this in this particular situation, but if we were putting this in a larger CI script in our GitLab deployment where we're going through and saying, okay, deploy the VPC, then deploy the security groups, then deploy, I don't know, the databases, let's say, the RDS DB instances. And we've deployed that all already. So we've got the infrastructure all set up, and we want to make a change to, I don't know, a security group. If we didn't have the no fail on empty change set, what happens in the CI script is, let's say the VPC goes first and there's no changes detected, it would actually create a failed change set. It's going to create a failed change set regardless, but it would basically send an error code back and stop our build process. So we use this no fail on empty change set as a way to say, hey, we understand that there's no changes for the VPC. That's great. Just keep going. And then it's going to go to the next template in our deploy, which would be, let's say, our security group, and work through that. Okay. And then we've got, well, we would set tags up. I'm not going to do that here, but we would do the same thing, right? Environment equals and all that. That's the way we can actually tag the CloudFormation stack itself. So these are the two scripts that we would normally kind of create. The other thing we would do in here is something like CloudFormation. Oh, you know what? I missed something here. I need to give it a stack name. There's the template, and it's stack name, and we called this already. I already forget. Give me a sec. I want to call just prefix demo, I think it was, or something like that. Yeah, prefix demo. So I don't want to deploy a new stack. I want basically to make changes to the existing stack. So in this case, I'll hard code the name in here. And then what we like to do if we're deploying this in production is we would normally want to set termination protection on the CloudFormation stack. So we can do that as well in a simple CLI script if I can quickly find it here. Let me see if I can. I think this is it. Yeah, okay. Enable termination protection, and then give it the stack name. So in this case, we've got it prefix demo. Okay. The other thing that we would do here is, just to demonstrate this, we normally use waiters. So I can go in and say AWS CloudFormation wait, and I want to say that a stack exists. So before setting termination protection, wait for the stack to exist. And again, you know, in a CI script, we would use these all as variables, right? Just to make it a little easier. So there we go. We've got our validate script, and then we've got 3 CLI commands that should deploy this. So let's see what happens here. I'm actually going to just try to run this right here in the command line. So we're going to do the, now that I've written them down, oh, there we go. Sorry, I forgot this, right? We need to use the correct profile. Otherwise, it's going to deploy in the wrong account. So profile is codev, and we'll just grab these and apply them to these commands as well. Okay, so let's do this. Just now that we've got them typed out, this way if we run into any problems, we can try it again. Oh, is it not going to let me paste them? Copy. There we go. Ah, there, okay. So it didn't like the way that I've put in the reference to the file. So let me just find that. This is the validate template command. Template body. Oh, sorry. Validate template. It helps if you actually type the full command in. Let's try this again. There we go. Last time I tried the Control-C, it didn't work, so let's do it this way. Oh yeah, I'm using cross-account access to get to our development account, so I just got to get token here. Bear with me a sec. Oh, I think I messed that up. Let's try it, see what happens. All right, I'm not sure what happened there. That wasn't the output I was expecting. Create a parameters prep false. I've just recently updated to the version 2 of the CLI, so let's actually do this too. Output, I think I have it set to YAML right now. This might give us something that's a little easier to do. Okay, so this is what I was expecting. Okay, so no errors, right? I don't know why it's doing the page there for some reason, but that means the validate template worked. And now what we're going to do is we're going to run our deploy commands. Let me copy that. Let me actually just pull this up here a bit. And then run this paste. And I'll do the same thing. Output JSON. It's going to ask me for my token. It did not. Okay. There we go. We got an error. Invalid template path. So I must have done the same thing. Let me just find the deploy command. Template file. -- template file. There's a slight difference, and I always forget what it is between the validate command and the deploy command. So let me just get the path where it's located. Hang on one sec. I'm gonna cheat, and we're gonna grab this out of an existing file. So just give me a sec. Let's see where I messed this up. Oh, okay. We've got them defined like this in another script. So let's try this and see. Template file. Okay. The rest of it looks pretty good. So we'll do the same thing. Copy. Go back down here and paste. An error occurred. Okay. Oh, must have values. So yeah, we're not actually setting the VPC ID, so we can go like this. And in this case, I do have to hard code it because I don't have the drop down list. So we're going to just find the VPC ID of, again, that Minecraft VPC, and we'll just paste that in. Okay, so there's that. Try this again. We'll grab that line. It doesn't like the keyboard shortcut for that for some reason. Copy, paste. There we go. So now what's happening, let me just flip back to the browser. What's happening is it just generated a change set. So if we go over to the stack, and here's our prefix demo, if we go in, what we're going to find is there's no change sets because we didn't actually change anything in that template, but we know that it works now. Okay, so let's go through the rest of the process. We'll set up termination protection, and this will give you an indication of kind of how we do this normally. I think this one's relatively painless command. Let's see if I at least get one of these 3 commands right. No, didn't either. Enable, terminate. Oh. It's supposed to be protection. Try it like that. There we go. Okay, so now if we're still not sure why it's doing that. So that works okay. So we're good. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a change now, and we'll just run this deploy command again to simulate the actual change set. So if we go back to prefix, probably the easiest thing to do is, let's say we bring on a new branch location. So, and its range is 10.40.40.0/24, and we'll give it a name. Okay. There we go. So if we were doing this in our CI script, the first thing that we would do would be to validate that template. And what we should get back here is just the JSON. So we know that's fine. If there were any errors, it would spit an error there saying unable to proceed. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll run the deploy command, change set, and as that's running, I'll flip back to the browser. Did I type something wrong here? This I was expecting to see actually fire a change set. Profile CO dev. I'm just having a look at the command. Prefix demo. I wonder if, let me just try something here. I might have my profile set to Northern Virginia as the default. Yeah, okay, so that's the problem. See, it's creating it over here. So let's go back to Canada. And what we'll do is we'll override the setting in our credentials and config file, and I'll just say region CA Central -1. Now what I'm hoping to see, if we go to prefix demo, go to change set, there we go. That's what I was expecting to see. So now we have a change set created, and we can go in here and you can see now we're modifying the branch office list, and we're also modifying the security group. And as I was mentioning, this is the most important column over here. The replacement column equals false. And if you wanted to actually see what it's doing, you can go under the JSON document and you can go through and see kind of what's been changed. All right. So we're going to execute this. Always takes longer when you're waiting for it. There we go. Drag this over here. I can see it a little easier. There we go. Yeah, it's just cleaning up. There we go, cleanup process, and the update's complete. So now if we go back over to the VPC, we look at manage prefix lists. We select this. Now you can see we've got version 2 of our prefix list, and here's the entries. So now we've added, oh, I messed up that range pretty good, but you get the idea, right? So that gives you a little bit of an idea on how to define a prefix list as part of a CloudFormation template, and then how to add that prefix list once you've defined it into a security group, and also a little ad hoc look at how we would normally put this into a GitLab CI script as a way to deploy or push these updates automatically when somebody pushes an update into the GitLab solution, or the GitLab repository, I should say. So that's kind of what I wanted to run through today. Thanks very much for joining me. I appreciate that. I know everybody's busy. Hope you learned something, and you can follow us here if you're not already following it. That'd be great. The other thing is we have a YouTube channel, which I'm going to post in the channel page here. So if you're interested in catching some other videos or longer kind of tutorials and things like that, I'd suggest subscribing to our YouTube channel as well. Right? Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.